So what I'm going to show you today is actually really simple, but I think it's a very important portion of what we're doing with these guys and I think it's going to help you kind of figure out what you might want to do with the what we call the overlap of the body, okay, the overlap of the joints, as well as also deal with a little bit of motion. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about is how the inverse kinematics is going to move. And some of you may have figured this out already or not. I'm just going to get rid of the background here, and I'm just going to what is the name of his symbol? Martin running. Running away. Okay, so there we go. So here's my guy, and I don't have any animation on him yet. But one of the things that you're going to notice that's going to be a big problem when you start doing this stuff is as you start to bend joints, notice what happens right here at the elbow. It looks weird, doesn't it? It looks weird. I mean, just you don't even have to say anything other than that. It looks weird. And part of it is because he's square. And people are not really square. Okay? Now, you can solve this the way I showed you 2 demos ago, which was at the end of last week, right? Where I showed you how to put a bone tool inside a shape so that it actually bends the shape. But as you also saw, you get into some problems with that, right? Because it can make the elbow section a little weird. So if you're just going to do a puppet, which is what I call these, like puppets, you know, like marionettes, okay? If you're going to do that, you need to kind of change the shape of the arms and each of the joints so that there's an overlap, and so that it looks natural. So we're going to take this elbow, and I'm going to show you a for instance. So I'm just going to put this out straight for the time being here. And if I go into the Modify tool, you'll see that I've already got some good stuff going on here as far as this is concerned, okay? But this is a little bit too close, I think. So I'm going to click on these. I'm going to bring this out a little bit, and then I'm going to take the rotate point and bring it back here, okay? Now things keep moving, which is really frustrating me. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with my guy here that things keep moving. But I want to make sure that I've got this set up. And if I remember correctly, every time I started to move the other copy of it goes away. No, it's working here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this symbol, double click, okay? And I need to start modifying it. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of make the elbow joint a little rounder. And then we'll go to the upper arm, and we're going to make it a little different too. So the first thing I can do is take my white arrow tool, and I'm going to click on this. And I need to convert these points to curve points so that I have more control over them. So I'm going to go under the pen tool. There's the Convert Anchor Point tool, or C key will get you to that. And I can take that, and I can make that more rounded. Now what you're going to have to do with this is actually a little bit of experimentation. So let me just finish this. I don't like that it's not showing me what I'm doing while I'm doing this, because it would really be helpful. But that's okay. And now I'm going to show you something really cool that you're going to like. So now, if I grab this with the black arrow tool and I start to do this, you can see that it looks a lot more natural, doesn't it? Okay? And it's really just a very simple change. But the other thing that I should probably do is I should probably go back and modify the upper arm as well, so that I have a little bit of a better joint coming here. It's too abrupt right here. So I'm going to double click on that symbol, and again go to my white arrow tool, and I should be able to click. Oh, now here I've got 3 layers. You remember this? So I've got the shirt, I've got some shadows that I started to put on the shirt, okay? And then I have the actual skin layer. So we're going to want to modify that one. So I'm going to lock the other layers here, and I'm going to go in, with the white arrow tool. Oh, click on the correct layer. There we go. And now I can really modify this and move the portions of the upper arm so that it moves, or it kind of blends a little bit better into the joint of the upper arm. Let's go back out and let's see how that works. That looks a lot better, doesn't it, than it was before? That's great. Okay, that really does work well. But now I have something else that's rather awkward, and that is this black line. I've got the stroke around the object, and so what it's doing is it's telling everybody right here where that separation between the objects is. It looks like I cut him out of paper and put him together. Did you ever do that with like make your own little paper dolls, and you put like with little brads in there, little brass things, and then you can move them around, right? Did you ever do that in elementary school? Okay, that's what it looks like. I've got this little guy. I've cut him out of paper, and each piece is a separate, shape. Well, you might like that, or you might not. And that's, I'm going to leave that up to you. But let's say I want to get rid of the stroke entirely, that black outline. Fine, you can do that. All you have to do, let's straighten this guy back out here. So, oops, I just really messed up his hand. So I'm going to take that and straighten that out. I like to edit everything when it's straight, and then go back and start moving things around to test it, because it's a little easier for me that way. So I can just double click on the symbol here. Come on. There we go. And I can go in and I just highlight this layer, or this thing, and I can go to the properties and I can take the stroke and I can just turn it off. Done. Now the problem with that is that it doesn't really look round. For some reason, having that border, that edge around everything, it's been in comic books. There's a reason for it. And now it starts to look it doesn't look quite as good, in my opinion. So if you're going to delete the stroke, what I recommend you do is then take a brush and start doing some shadowing, like I was starting on the shirt here. So and I always like to do it on a new layer, okay, just in case. That way I can delete things really easily. So I'll lock that, and then I'm going to take this, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select my color. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to select it again, and I'm going to go to my color picker. And now I can kind of create a shadow here of a little darker version, and I'm going to take my brush size, maybe up a little bit here, and now I'm going to just very carefully paint in some shadows. Now it doesn't always work as perfectly as you want, but you can do some pretty cool stuff by just slowly working a little lighter and a little lighter to create some illusion of three-dimensional depth in Flash. In fact, I might even start going something like this for some highlights on the other side of it. Oops, it wasn't supposed to change the other one to highlights. Okay, now can you see how that's going to start giving the arm a little bit of a sense of depth? Not the highlight here, that's obviously a mistake, but, and it gives, it looks a little weird maybe at certain points, but if I were to delete the line on the upper arm too, I think you'd start seeing that it would start working out better. It would start looking better. You're never going to get it matching up perfectly. Okay? There's always going to be some separation there of the tones because you have literally two separate objects. But it's going to look better. See, it looks better. Or if you want to keep the black line, now you can actually do both. You can keep the shades, okay? And you can keep the black you can keep the black line. So let's undo my motion here, And let's get back into the oh, for some reason, look at that, I'm upside down. Why is that? There we go. I just want to get rid of this highlight. Okay. I think it's taking, the master symbol is upside down, I guess, over here. So anyway, I have this. What if I wanted that stroke back again? I wonder if I can get it back. Highlight it. Oops, wait. I'm on the wrong layer. Turn that off. Now go to this layer. Select that. And I get a black stroke back again. So there, I can get the stroke back again. Okay, so that's rather nice. But what I also, let's turn these off for a second. But what I don't like is the stroke only over here. So the issue is, okay, now that I've made the joint round, can I get rid of the line only at the end of the joint instead of along the whole forearm? And the answer is yes. But it's a little complicated as to how, so pay attention, watch this. What I like, you can click on the stroke with the black arrow tool here, okay? You double click on it and you get into what we call the drawing object. Or you can right click and you can say break apart. And that allows you to click on the stroke or the fill. So what I can do is I can just click on the stroke and delete it, which I don't recommend. Or I can do this. Now watch, I can just drag this and I can highlight that. Now right now if I do that and I delete, it also deletes that nice rounded edge that I created on the forearm so that it would cover the gaps. So if I keep it this way, the line may look better, but look what happens when I bend the elbow. I still have that flat edge to it. So let's go undo that. Okay. So now what I can do is I've highlighted a section of the stroke that I want to get rid of. Then holding the shift key down, I'm going to then select, here, let me do this a little closer so you can see a little better. So right here in the end, I'm just going to start off the side, I'm going to click and drag and draw a box. And I'm going to say I want to get rid of this much of the stroke at the end, right? But the problem is I also clicked on some of the fill. So I hold shift key down and I click again and it deselects the fill that I had selected. And now I can hit the delete key and I've deleted part of the stroke, but I haven't deleted that fill section. So now if we go back into the symbol here, it's going to look a little better, but still not perfect. What I really am seeing that I want is I want a little less of the top and a little bit more of the bottom. So let's undo, 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 undo. Okay. Now, go back into the symbol this way. I'm going to just delete this layer of shading for a little bit here. I'm going to show you, actually no I'm not. I'm going to show you another little trick. I'm going to keep that for one more trick. So what I'm going to do here is what I had selected was something like this. But what I really want is I really want a little bit more of this. So I might try and go like that. Hold the shift key down, maybe get even a little bit more here like that. And then shift, click on the fill, hit the delete key. That might look better because then it just looks like a little nub of an elbow. Let's go see how that looks. That looks a little better. Now what I'm seeing is that this rounded edge here is probably a little bit too big. So let's go back in here and let's take my my tool and notice all of a sudden now I've got all these extra points in here. That comes from deleting the stroke. But what I can do now is I can kind of make this a little bit less of an end. I can delete some of these points as well, and then let's see how that looks. That's better. I like that. That's better. And then when the arm bends, we do have a little line that comes over the top, but it looks like a crease now. It looks like a wrinkle in the skin, right? not an actual, like, just line around the object. Now the elbow gets a little weird, but we can deal with that actually by having more of the line on the forearm, the upper arm, continue a little bit further. But the biggest problem I have right now is because I did that shading, can you see how the stroke around the arm looks kind of uneven and weird? So what we really need to do is we need to take the stroke and actually paste it into another layer. So watch this. Double click. Whoops, I need wrong tool. Double click. Okay, so what I can do here is see this? The stroke is there. I'm going to copy it, Command C, and then delete it. Then I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to go paste in place. Not paste in the center, because then I have to figure out where it goes again. But paste in place. Boom. Puts it right back. But now, take a look at what happens with all my shading. Because the stroke is now on a separate layer, when I turn on all my shading, the shading that was uneven is now behind the stroke and doesn't show up at all. How cool is that? I think it's pretty cool. The other thing you can do is you can alter the width of the stroke real easily too. So, you know, 1's pretty thick. How about 0.75? Let's go 0.6. So in the properties tray here, I can try to alter the width of the stroke to maybe make it a little bit better. I like that. I think that's looking really good. So now when I go back out here, yeah, that looks a lot better. Okay, things are working a lot better for me right now. I still think that this is a little bit weird down here at the elbow. So what I could do, again, is change the upper arm. Instead of trying to change the lower arm here, I'm going to change the upper arm. So double click. And this is what's nice about the double click, is I can see how it's going to work in the situation that I'm in. So I'm just going to bring this point forward a little bit here. Bring that back a little bit. That looks better. It's never going to be perfect, so remember that. That's going to be about as good as I'm going to get. But that looks pretty good, doesn't it? Okay, just from a little bit of fancy stuff with deleting the stroke at the end and maybe some shading here, this works. You know, I probably go back into the black arrow tool and use my shading here. And notice one of the things, I'm in a rush because I'm trying to do a demo and I don't want to take too much time. I think it's really important to name your layers. You want to be organized. You're going to start getting really confused. So this is my skin layer. Okay, or maybe I'll just call it the base. No, not that base, that base. And then here I'll call this shading. And then this is the outline, or the stroke, okay? And so what I can do now is lock those two layers, go into my shading, and I can continue shading, you know, with some lighter tones here along the top with the paintbrush, and continue getting stuff. And what's cool is because I have that stroke there, even if I'm a little uneven in my shading, it's not going to matter at all. Because that line is going to cover it. Hey, all my stuff changed. Did you see that? These are all light now. That's annoying. So I can choose this, and then I need to go back and make it darker, I guess. And then click OK. So also realize that when you're highlighting, when you're changing the color, if you have something selected by accident, it's going to change the color on you. That's kind of frustrating. But you can see I'm starting to build something that's now starting to look like it's round. It's now starting to have more form. And because I have the lines and I've selectively deleted the stroke so that it doesn't have a line right in the middle, and I've rounded the joints, now this whole action looks a lot better, doesn't it, than it did before when he had a square, joint, basically. That looks so much better. For contrast, take a look at his knees. Okay? That looks horrible. So what we want to do now that you've started getting these characters going and you started moving on them, okay, is we want to take the joints, we want to round them out a little bit so that we have an overlap that makes sense, so that you don't have these massive gaps that open up like the knee does here. Does this make sense to everybody? All right. Well, let's get to work.